What's up, MetaNerdz? This video is all about how First Contact Protocol differed during the time of the Republic and the Empire. First Contact is a term for when two alien species meet each other for the first time. In the book Thrawn, we get an interesting glimpse into how this went down in a galaxy far, far away. Set early on in the Imperial era, our story takes us to an unnamed planet in wild space, where Imperials have been under attack from an unknown creature. When they finally discover what they thought to be the creature's home, they examine every square inch of the shack to try and learn more about their opponent. Among the various scavenged parts and bits of food, they discover a unique code. Experts could determine that the writing was Bogalan script, but the words were not Bogalese. To add to the mystery, they brought in a group of droids that could process any known language in the galaxy, and not a single one of them had any clue what it meant. They called over an Imperial cadet, who the snooty city folk thought was just a backwoods yokel. The wild space native hurried over from his shipping assignments to take a look. Cadet Eli Vanto was the group's informal expert on wild space trade languages, and he said there were some connections to an obscure language called Cybisti. But then they found another language written in a different hand, which he was completely unfamiliar with. This had to be a new language from an unknown species. And with that news, Imperial heads drooped in frustration and anger. UA Protocol, unknown alien protocols, were in place for situations like this, and since they had already reported the attacks by the creature, there was no way out of it now. Vanto thinks about how this will slow down their shipments, putting more stress on his commanders, resulting in a bunch of Imperials in a very foul mood. We can see how the discovery of a new species is seen as an annoyance, a burden, and speed bump during the time of the Empire. No one in this story finds it interesting that a new species might be found. Instead, they're concerned about how it will impair the well-oiled Imperial machine. In the time of Palpatine, order was the highest ideal. Completing a task on time was all that one should worry about, and this unknown just screwed up everyone's perfectly calculated calendars. Cadet Vanto muses about how the modern Imperial Navy itself did not have any directive concerning new aliens, nor did they have any interest. There were even rumors at the Academy that Palpatine was working to remove the UA protocol, but tons of senators still supported it, and the bill was loved by academics and many scientifically interested civilians. Because it had been on the books for millennia, even though it wasn't the Imperial Navy's direct orders, they still adhered to the UAP. So more experts had to be brought in, and everything from the alien's shack was analyzed. When the creature was captured, he was a blue-skinned, red-eyed humanoid covered in clothing he made from local furs. Vanto recognized these features from a species called the Chiss, but they were discounted as the stuff of wild space myth. Through these long-ago interactions, the Chiss species had learned Cybisti, and they even knew a little of the galactic language Basic from the few travelers that wandered near Chiss space. Now this Chiss, of course, was Thrawn, and his impressively planned out attacks and history with the Clone Wars Jedi got him an audience with the Emperor. Obviously, your average alien would not get this kind of treatment. Instead, they would be detained on-world until xenobiologists could interact with them. When Vanto is talking about how frustrating the UAP was to deal with, he gives us some insight on how it used to be. He says during the time of the Republic, a new alien race was being discovered every other week, and the Senate wanted every one of them to be contacted and studied. It is also known that the Jedi had different paths they could dedicate themselves to in the Jedi Service Corps. One of these was the Exploration Corps, which under the Jedi Researcher title had a specialization in biology, often working alongside Jedi archaeologists and liturgists to study newly discovered aliens. These goals meshed perfectly with the University of Coruscant, with both of these groups working as friendly ambassadors who brought aliens into the larger galactic community of the Republic. But what's really interesting is who they chose to be the face of the Benevolent Republic. Though the Grand may seem hideous to humans, believe it or not, they were incredibly friendly and patient, with Grand making up the bulk of the old Republic's first contact specialists. So you can see how the Imperial and Republic's feelings toward alien discoveries were exact opposites. Throw in a ton of anti-alien sentiment that peaked after the chaos of the Clone Wars, and you can see how the thrill of scientific discovery faded in favor of order and predictability. To the Empire's credit though, although we might be excited to find new life in the galaxy, we need to remember that the Star Wars galaxy is full of more aliens than most would ever see in their lifetime. So I imagine hearing about a new species would be about as exciting as learning about some stranger's life story. Because if you spent a lifetime talking to bug people, slug people, dog-bear people, telepathic clams and crystals, and all the other weird creatures under the sun, you'd probably just start to see them all as people. Not that your average Imperial citizen would hate aliens, just be indifferent towards them, as this new species would also have to eat and excrete, have emotions and die, just like all the others. So why stop the shipments or hold up the military just to learn about another one of millions of aliens? I of course like to think that I would be the excited Jedi researcher, but I think realistically if I grew up in the galaxy far, far away, I might also be caught up in the womp rat race trying to get enough credits to live comfortably, and learning about cool xenobiology as a hobby. And like Eli Vanto, I know I would probably get pissed if I was stuck in traffic, all because some sentient life researcher was interviewing some guy he just met on the highway. So that's it for the story of how the Republic and Empire approached it. But this may get you thinking, what is Earth's first contact protocol? Well, the answer is actually very underwhelming. The Search for Extraterrestrial Life, or SETI, is a team of different scientists from around the world who look at electromagnetic data like radio signals to try and discover forms of alien life out in our universe. Sounds like we're taking it seriously, but let me read you a quote from Seth Shostak, lead researcher at the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California. This comes from an interview with Live Science, which I have linked to in the description. In it, Shostak stated, "If you pick up a signal, tell everybody, and don't broadcast replies without international consultation," whatever that means. Then he says, "But that's all the protocols say. They have no force of law. The United Nations took a copy of the early protocols, put them in a file drawer somewhere, and that's as official as they ever got. So if a signal is ever picked up, the team will be scrambling to figure out what to do next. But this technically is just first detection, not first contact. If the aliens show up here, the UN actually set up plans back in 1999, which introduced the first alien ambassador. Mazlan Othman was chosen, and would later run the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs from 2011 to 2014. And our current alien ambassador is the Italian physicist Simonetta Di Pippo. I think this job has the greatest variation and effort required in the history of the planet. Think about it, you have absolutely nothing to do with your time, until you do, knowing that at any second you will be required to protect and represent the entire species. But taking it even further back to 1967, the US and Soviets agreed to policies that would ensure that any alien discoveries would be detained in a sterile environment. This is of course to prevent a sort of mutual Columbus discovering the New World situation, where our lack of exposure to each other's germs might end up wiping both of us out. Any more detail on what happens if life is discovered via rovers or satellites, sadly has remained classified information. So that's it for the UAP, the Unknown Alien Protocol, and how it differed during the time of the Republic and the Empire. If you want to connect with us, help support this channel, or pick up your own free copy of the Thrawn audiobook, be sure to check out the links in the description. Special shout out to our supporters over on Patreon, but most important of all, remember, no matter how hectic your life is, always take the time to stop and smell the aliens. And the Force will be with you, always.